Welcome back to Soulful and Sober. I'm super, super excited about today's guest and our topic all about intuition. So if you're new to intuition, trying to get your intuition more tuned, or just really just curious about how intuition can play in your life, you are going to love my host, Heather Alice Shea. Thank you so much for being here.
Chrissy, thanks so much for having me on. I know this is going to be a banger of a conversation. I feel like I could just rabbit hole and get into all of the topics with you. So I'm super excited to talk about intuition today with you.
Before we get started, I do want you just to kind of just let the people know who you are and full transparency. I'm working with Heather in a certificate program just for coaching, intuition, and those types of things. And she's just phenomenal. So yeah, let them know all about you.
Cool. Yeah, so you'll find me on the interwebs on the Instagram and the website at heatheralishea.com. So I run a life coach training academy for aspiring life coaches. And our claim to fame in Atmana Academy, which is my school, is intuition. So my background is in a formal clinical mental health counseling. So that's kind of how I came into the coaching world. And what I discovered in doing the deeper work, especially when struggling with things like substances or, our relationships, like, I don't know about you, but I definitely have a personality that's like, hey, more of a good thing is even better? So what I noticed in my clinical work was this lack of true connection with self in terms of not only helping people heal, but helping people heal through hearing and knowing themselves, through becoming their own leader, right? Letting their own soul guide the process. And so I just deeply fell in love with intuition. Um, I've been in business, an entrepreneur for 11 years. And throughout the whole thread, I suppose, of even my life as a kid, me as a person, it's been this sort of consistent theme of learning how to trust myself, especially when the world is telling me that I'm wrong, that I'm bad, that I'm no good, or that what I want to do is bad or no good. So, yeah, I founded Atmana Academy 11 years ago, and we focus on intuitive development and then helping coaches use their intuition to help their clients heal, achieve better outcomes while also having more fun. I think kind of like a slept on quality of intuition is that your life is just way more fun, which we could all use, I think, in the stressful period that we're in. So yeah, that's my background.
That's amazing. And I agree with the trusting component because I think that a lot of women I talk to is they're like, I think this is what I want.
Yeah.
And they have this really difficult time discerning, is this my intuition? Is this what I want? And they might not be even saying intuition. They might be even saying, I feel a pull towards this, but I don't know. And they're questioning yourself. Is that, I guess, what you're talking about? And maybe just to kind of expand on that, because I think that would be helpful. Because a lot of people are like, feel like I'm stuck and I can't do this and that. And they actually know exactly what they want.
Yeah, I mean, I would define intuition as knowing something that's true without knowing how you know. And that part that's true is really important because often we have a sense, or like you're saying, an inkling of what we know our path to be, like of what we think that it is, what kind of the impression of what it would be, but we get into the self-doubt because we're like, well, I don't know if that's real. I don't know if that's true, or I don't know if that's right. I don't know if that's accurate. So we have a tendency to fall back on what the crowd says or what our parents said or what society says, when the reality is, if we would just give ourselves a chance, we really do know what we want. We really do know who we are. We actually do have a ton of self-confidence, a ton of gifts to give, and we know it. So that's my favorite thing about intuition is it returns you and restores you to the natural and innate power that you were born with. And an analogy that I always use with this is like, can somebody please show me a toddler that's not supremely self-confident? Like, what do little toddlers? No, let me do it. Let me do it. When little kids learn to walk, they don't get discouraged that they're falling. They know they can do it. We all were born with this innate sense in our ability to lead and guide ourselves. And then it gets beat out of us. It really does, especially today and kind of this polarized world that we're in. So I think it's knowing that something that's true or accurate for you without understanding maybe how you know, and then learning how to hear, see, feel, and trust that inner source of wisdom in your daily life. And the good news is that there's a lot of science now. I mean, we can now explain exactly how intuition works. It's no longer this myth that people, kind of your great I have a sixth sense. People would say this metaphorically, like, actually, no. We do know that there is one, and you can learn how to develop it so that you're never stuck in start or relying on other people. How do they know what's best for you either, right? So you're just never relying on those external things again. You can really live a self-led life. So I think that's what intuition buys us, which is truly priceless, actually.
Oh, I love that too, because it is so true. I even look at my own journey of the things I thought, and then I was like fighting it because I wanted it to be a certain way, or I thought that it was supposed to be this way. And I think that's kind of this in between where you're like, your body knows, but then your
Mhm,
like logical mind tries to like figure all of it out. Well, that doesn't make sense, right? And like, I love the analogy of, a toddler because they're not sitting there logically thinking
mm-mm,
about things. They're just like, this is how it is. This is what I want. I'm going to go after that ball. It's across the room. I'm going to fall. I'm going to cry, but I'm going to get the ball.
mhm. Yeah, there's a resiliency there that I think living an intuitive life affords you that we lose as we grow up, right? As we become quote unquote responsible adults. And there's certainly a place, of course, for the logical parts of life, right? That's good too, but we've got that developed really well. Most human beings have that part developed really well. So, yeah, just really learning how to listen to yourself. I think that's another way to to talk about intuition or to approach it. It's what is it that how am I leading myself? How am I talking to myself? What is coming up inside of me that I'm not paying attention to that needs to be considered? So and a big question I get asked with this is, well, how do I tell? How do I tell the difference between what is truly my intuition versus the external programming or, my religious upbringing or, my own thoughts, right? Just like, what's the difference between just my own thoughts and an intuitive impression, or my wishful thinking or, more like my ego, right? How do I really, really know that it's my intuition versus all of these other things? And that of course is the art of it, right? That's the journey that we go on to discover our authentic voice and to decide to let that lead our lives. And I think it's also a thing with intuition too, is once people really realize that they do have the ability to get the answers that they need, no external approval needed, it's actually really scary because you realize, oh my gosh, like I am that powerful. I really can do it. So it just opens up a whole world, I think that at this point in time, we're really all excited and desperate for. So,
Yeah. And, what comes to mind too when I think about my own journey and, and maybe other people can resonate is that you have this thought. And then when you actually act on the thought, all these things happen. And it's not always what people think, right? Like people sometimes are like, oh, I just think these magical thoughts. I'm like, no, sometimes intuition is actually things that you don't want. And
oh yeah,
you
yeah,
don't want. But once you open up, I say Pandora's box, and once you can understand it more, you get flooded with it. And then I look at my own alcohol free journey and then just things that happened after that. And so
mm,
I really just also always like to bring up it's like things that you sometimes don't wanna hear, so what do we do when we don't wanna hear it? We're like, "That can't be true," or if you're with somebody you don't really wanna be with or in a job, again, there's lots of amazing things that happen with intuition, the great things you think about. But I think, the other coin is, like, there's that energetic feeling of, like, "This person's really not meant for me, but I want it to be meant for me, so I'm gonna override all these
Mhm.
different feelings and just stay with this person," and then, like, 3 years later, they're like, "Dang it."
Yeah, yeah, that's such a good point that one of the key characteristics of intuition versus all of these other voices in our head, right? Or all of these other things that we're listening to is that your intuition is gonna tell you things you don't wanna hear, but that deep, deep, deep down, you know is true, and we just don't want it to be true, so, um and, what I love about that is just because like, at least puts you back into choice, right? Okay, so fine, so stay in that relationship, but at least you're choosing that from a place of, I don't know, I just want this because I want it. Like, I think a big impediment to living an authentic life, like, people are scared to find out the answer because then they feel pressured to have to go make these big monumental changes, so they don't listen within. They won't allow themselves because they're afraid that they're gonna have to be forced into doing something that maybe they feel they're not ready for, and what I say to that is you don't have to do anything, but being honest with ourselves, that's important. The decisions can come later, the choices that we need to make, whether it's, you know, going alcohol free or putting up boundaries with loved ones. The first step is to be honest with ourselves about what that next right move is. And from there, then you can make decisions that maybe it's a month from now. You don't like,
Yeah.
I think that's a big impediment, right? Like, you don't have to force yourself into doing anything. You can just sit in that space of stillness and allow yourself to discover what you really feel and believe and know to be true for you at this moment. And from that place, a lot of options that you were not considering or did not think of will become available to you. And that's also the magic of it as well. It's very much a life expander.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very, very true. I think about, some of the people I work with and just even my own journey. I think getting curious about what you're thinking about on a regular basis, right? Yes, like with some things we think about, there is fear in it, but some of the things that we think about doesn't mean we should do it or not do it. I mean, it's at the end of the day, we all have free will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have free will. But for me, I kept thinking about not drinking, I kept thinking about health. And
Mm,
I so it's not always super big, and I think that's where people think, like, "Oh, it has to be this monumental thing," or, like, if I'm and I'm just by the way, I'm just putting relationship stuff because it's tangible, not because,
sure.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
somebody out there, but, like, I think we have to pick A or B, and sometimes we have to, like, to get curious about A and B, and you don't have to make a decision because once you, I think, free that up and surrender it to some degree, you have more capacity to have that clarity versus I have to quit
Hmm.
forever or I have to leave this person. Often, sometimes it's not straightforward because of lots of different factors.
I love that. That's so important, man. We kind of think, oh, the intuition, it's going to be like a lightning bolt from straight from God, right? Like Zeus himself comes down and pops us on the head. It's like, actually, no. It's just this, it's very much a still little small voice in your own mind, just, urging you or sort of breadcrumb trailing you in a very small step way, um, on the path of greater clarity and happiness. So, yeah, for me, I actually have a cute story around this. This was, oh my goodness, so many years ago, but I had a client once. Her name was Margaret. She was a painter, did not have a lot of money, saved a ton of money, $100 to buy like these oil pastel color. I don't know. Anyway, like she was into art. So her supplies were really important to her. And she had saved up $100 to go buy this pack of pastel crayon things that she wanted. And, she's like, "Heather," she was took her forever to really understand, it's listening within, right? It's listening to that voice inside your head, guide you, right? It has a distinct feel, it has a distinct set, like, really getting to know your intuitive voice. She just could not understand what I was talking about. And then I had a session with her and she goes, "I know what you're talking about now. I totally get it. I finally bought my oil pastels, went to the art store, came home. I had groceries in the car plus my bag of my pastels, and a little voice in my head said, "Margaret, don't leave those pastels in the car. Take them in first, because if you don't, you're gonna forget them. Take them in first before your groceries, you will forget them." And she was like, "No, no, it'll be fine. I won't forget them." She forgot them and they, uh, melted in her car, totally ruined, and it was a lot of money for her. And she goes, "Is that what you mean?" And I said, "Yes." Like, your intuition cares about the small things that are important, that seemingly isn't important, but is important to you, is important to you. So, yeah, I think once you learn to listen within to that little voice, oh man, it's such a game changer on the little things and the big things for sure.
That's such a good example. I remember when I'm not gonna get into it, like, all the details, but, like, there was a time in my life that was a little bit difficult, and there's things I started to realize, and I started to wake up in the middle of the night and just think things, and they were, like, things that I would normally never think of, and
Mm,
so, and also too could be some things from the subconscious coming on up to
sure.
the conscious too, but I, like, remembered them, like, 2 months later, and they, like, were life-saving and changing things that at that
Mm,
moment, it didn't make sense to me, but later on, so, sometimes it's like, "Man, that's so, like, so wild, the things that happen," and then you're like, "Well, that made more sense now." So some things might not make sense even right this minute.
mhm.
So I think like your story is like that was like, if you don't bring them in now, they are going to melt.
That's
And
right.
then like in other things, you're like, I don't understand that. And so it's also not knowing all the things and not needing to know all the things, right?
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
sometimes things just come there and the downloads happen and you're like, I don't understand that. And I always tell people, just get an intuition journal, write stuff down, and
Yeah.
then you can look at it and you're gonna be like, holy crap, this is cool.
Yeah, and in a way, isn't it good that we don't understand it? Because if we understood it, then we would still be at the level of the intellectual mind, and the whole point of intuition is to transcend that. It's to go to a different place within us. So, in my model of intuitive development, we actually include the logical mind in the process. I think a lot of times we think intuition is anti-logical or illogical. It's not. It's just non-logical. It's a different system, but I think it's great that we don't know because that's telling us that we're on a new path, right? And also too, like I love what you're saying about sleeping because that our subconscious and our unconscious mind is think of it like that's kind of the I don't wanna say gateway, but kind of, right? It comes up through intuition works through the unconscious, then subconscious mind before it's gonna reach our conscious mind. So, that's why when we're sleeping or when we're in relaxed states, we're able to hear our intuition better. It's because we're not in such a state of resistance. The conscious mind isn't in full power to crush it, right? Our logical self is so strong, right? That conscious mind is so strong that it really can drown out the messages that are always there. They're there all of the time. It's just that we're not in a place or a position or in an understanding of how to let them bubble up. So that's why, embarking on a journey of learning how, okay, or I should even say relearning, right? You already know how to do it. We're all born knowing how to do it, but to put ourselves back in a place of allowing those parts of self to lead and guide us is really, really important because we get access to wisdom and knowledge that collapses our timeline, that makes things so much easier, than we could ever believe it to be, right? I can't believe it is a great thing to of course you can't because we're just functioning with our logical mind. So, yeah, I think one of the biggest skills we can learn is not needing it to make sense right this minute and letting it unfold. Yeah.
No, I love that. I also think that a lot of people are like, how do I strengthen my intuition? And, I look at it as like a muscle.
Mhm.
And I also think, I don't know what your thoughts are on this. So there's times in my life where I'm like, I need to get back to like my practice. And it's not meditating for 14 hours, just to let
Mhm.
people know. Because I know some people are hesitant to meditation. So I think there's lots of different ways to do this where you don't have to do something that doesn't feel good. But I also tell people challenge some of the things you're saying because there's different ways to meditate too that
Mhm.
don't take, again, a long period of time. But what I've noticed is sometimes we get so busy that we put some of these things at the back burner because it's like, well, this thing's more important. This thing's more important. But just like our physical health, our spiritual health, or whatever you want to call it, you can call it mental health, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It's really important because I think it is important to have those down times where you're just letting your brain,
Mhm.
for me, I think so much. I have so much going on that sometimes it is a little bit of a, hate to say this, but it's a little bit hard sometimes just to be like,
Oh,
"Okay,
sure.
you gotta shut it off, girl," because you know how to get your intuition and you know you're not doing it. So I would love to hear your thoughts on practices and things that you would tell somebody to help them strengthen their intuition.
Yeah, that's a beautiful it's such an honest way to say it all, because that's what you just said is truly our experience in life, isn't it? Um, my approach on it is if it doesn't fit into your life, then it's not the right practice, so that's the first thing. What will work for you what will work is what works for you, and I think sometimes we get trapped in thinking we've gotta do it this way or we've gotta do it that way because a teacher, a guru, some author who wrote a book told us that this is what we've gotta do. The practice that's gonna work is what works for you, so that's the first thing. It's like our goal is to find something that works for you. The second thing is so you'll the second thing is to find a practice, and I'll give some here in a second, that create an atmosphere of introspection for you. And people go to meditation a lot because it's like just full throttle introspection, right? You're sitting, you're paying attention to your breath, right? You're paying attention within, but it doesn't have to be that. There's a lot of ways that we can go within and introspect. And so one of my favorites is to just go on a walk. And while I am on that walk, pay attention to so this is like a somatic practice to pay attention to how my feet feel as I'm walking or the noise, like the sounds that and just note that. So many people in our world right now are neurodivergent, a touch of OCD, a touch of ADHD. By the way, I think a lot of people, I know for myself, you and I have had prior conversations. Like, I will admit this with full transparency. In my 30s, I definitely drank too much. There's no question about it. Like, I don't know, like functional alcoholic might have been a label that fit. I don't know, but I have definitely been in that space. And one of the reasons why, as I can look back on it, that I was that way is I was overwhelmed, burned out, and I just never really had time or took the time to let myself feel my feelings, to let myself feel what was within me. And that is and I love meditation, but I think it's actually terrifying to be sitting on a Zafu cushion and then all of a sudden have those emotions hit. So, one good practice you can try is like go on a walk. It's a somatic practice. So the body is moving and it's not as overwhelming then to say, and we can go through 5 little questions that you can ask yourself. And these are intuition primers. It's so fun. It's easy. Even a toddler can do it. Little kids can do it. So the first is you're out on your, and I still do this to this day. It's actually my favorite form of meditation is the walking meditation. And I will just be present with myself. If I can, I'll even say it out loud. What am I seeing right now? And I will note physical things. So I'll go, my eyes, we're gonna do our 5 senses, right? So what am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I feeling? And that will be my feeling is 2 ways, my emotions and then also my body, right? I will do what am I smelling? What am I tasting? And then what do I just know to be true right now for myself? So you'll run through those, run through all of your 5 senses and just take note. Take note of them. You can do your outside, like I see a tree, right? Oh, I see a cat. I see this beautiful blue Cadillac that's always parked in my neighbor's driveway. But then I'll also look within. So I'll use my 5 senses to then say within, okay, now let me notice any images that pop up in my mind. Let me pay attention to what I'm seeing within myself, right? Same, what am I hearing? Oh, I hear a bird, right? What am I seeing? What am I hearing within, right? is there a message for me there, right? So a wonderful way to prime your intuitive abilities is to use the outside world, which we're so accustomed to paying attention to anyway, to be a primer to then say, okay, let me go within. So that's a great one, is just do a little walking meditation and run through what you're feeling, what you're sensing at the time. And what you'll notice as you do this is there's a familiarity that will come to your inner world, and you'll start to have a sense of yourself in it, that an original thought that's yours. You'll be able to tell that versus the outside noise, right? You'll just be able to feel what's you versus everybody else. So that is a good one. Um, another really great one for intuitive development. This is really, really neat. So this is more of a like an inquiry one that you could do some writing. So if you love to write, this is a brilliant one. Ask yourself, what do I believe to be true about myself at this moment? Or if you have a question you want to ask, or something that a decision you need to make, ask yourself, what do I know to be true? What do I know to be true? Here's another question. If I knew that nobody would ever be upset or mad at me, and it would be totally acceptable for me to think this thought or believe this, and I knew that it would be okay, in the end it would turn out well, what would I think or believe or say or know about this? So that's more of a written, sort of a logical inquiry approach, and then just let yourself write it out. Or if you're a writer, talk out loud. Turn on your literally record yourself, and then just let yourself express and talk. What is gonna pour out of you will absolutely be tapped into that intuitive side. So you're asking yourself, "What do I know to be true?" And your intuitive self will answer. You will be surprised at what comes up. So those are just 2 quick, fun, easy, things for you to do um, that just feel normal, that can fit into your everyday life without having to take a ton of time.
Those are good, and I love walking, so I'm gonna have to try that one, and I often don't even use I mean, sometimes I do, but no headphones, like, no electronics,
Mhm.
and for me, I think this is really important too. What you talk about is, like, not thinking about your to-do list, like, so what you're getting out of your mind and, yeah, into your body, into the environment, because I think that's the biggest thing, and then also, I don't know what your thoughts are on this. So, I am really good at not feeling how things feel,
Sure.
meaning, like, let's say I have to make a decision, and I know this now, and oftentimes I need to sit with it and actually feel how it feels in my body, and so sometimes, like, some people, if you're gonna make a big decision, and again, with, like, what you said, it might not be the time to make the decision,
Sure.
and that's okay too, but for me, it's, like, also learning how my body feels, and I know this is what you talk about in your
Mhm.
program as well. How does that feel, like a yes or a no? And I have to be someone in a relaxed state, but if something's a yes, I can almost feel it in my heart space, and if
Mhm.
it's a no, I feel kind of like nothing's there, so that is, like, a fun practice, and you can do it with your first name if you want to, like,
Oh, yeah,
my
impression
name is
mapping. Yeah.
yeah, my name is Chrissy, and see where you feel at. Like, you might have something in your gut that kind of lights up, and again, for me, it's not rushing things when I have to make decisions because I won't feel it. So I think it's just all about practice and trying to kinda connect with your own body, which I know that's hard for us to do these days.
Yeah. I think that the so life is a felt experience, and I had a client once say this to me, and it really just bowled me over. Most coaching is logic based. It's thinking thoughts. It's examining your thoughts. People erroneously say your thoughts create your reality. They do not. Your thoughts do not create your reality. Your thoughts reflect to you the emotions the emotional energy that's in the system. So in other words, thoughts are a strategy that your mind employs to make sense of emotions. So we now know this from neuroscience. Emotions precede thoughts. So every thought we've ever thought in our entire life is predicated upon and preceded by an emotion, okay? So thoughts are fun because we feel like we have the answer. Oh, it's this. Thoughts feel safe. So we've been kind of taught and told that thoughts are the solution, thoughts create your reality. And also, thoughts are safe. You can share your thoughts with your boss, but probably not your feelings, right? So, emotional energy feels scary for this reason. And a lot of us just honestly aren't good at feeling our feelings anymore. I know I it's a challenge for me to this day to do it, right? It's not because our emotions have a life of their own. They're not going to be bossed around, right? Like as I love to say, the muse will not be whipped. You can talk yourself into a different thought. You cannot talk yourself into a different feeling. It just is. Okay, so that's the first thing is to have some compassion on the feeling level. Um but to be able to give ourselves permission to feel what we feel is so important because that's where our true discernment lies. That's the source of our true discernment. And like that client that I had that bowled me over, she said, Heather, I was doing all this logical work with her. She said, Heather, I don't want to think better thoughts. I want to feel better.
Mm.
I don't wanna think better thoughts. I wanna feel better feelings. Like, she's like, I just wanna feel better. I don't care." Like, she was so in touch with her emotions. She was actually an artist, which makes sense, right? So and that just hit me. I'm like, the only reason why we wanna do all this meditating and examining our thought is because we wanna feel better. But if we're not even giving ourselves permission to feel our feelings, how do we even know what better is? Would we even know it if it hit us in the face? So to make space around that, what am I feeling in this moment? Or if you do know how you feel, ask your this is a brilliant question to help get in touch with our feelings, which again is the source of our intuit. So if you look at it, research on intuition, emotional energy is kind of the fuel of the intuitive experience. The primary way that intuitive information comes to us is through emotions, okay, or through emotional energy. All right. So once we find that emotion, it's like, okay, well, Heather, great. I'm angry. I'm really angry. That's lovely to know. What do I do now? It's like, okay, well, if that anger could talk, what would it say? What does this feeling of anger have to say about this decision? What does that feeling of anger have to say about what just happened? Why don't you let that part of you talk? Or maybe you're sad. What would that sadness say? What does it want you to so then it allows you to sort of differentiate between these different aspects of self that have different feelings and thoughts and, a whole different way of viewing things. But the gateway to that really is emotions. So it's really having the courage to care about how we feel and realize that everything you're trying to do all the decisions, all the goals, all the achievement, all of that is just so you can feel how you wanna feel. So why don't we just go there directly? That's what I propose with intuition. Like, let's just go there directly, and let that part of ourself have more importance in our life and cultivate that aspect, that felt intuitive aspect of our beingness. Letting that be as important as the rest of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you bringing that up because I think without the emotional component, like, where do we go? Like, if I want to, let's say, manifest stuff, right? Or if like, every evening, my nervous system is going into overdrive, right? Like, and what I mean by that is, let's say you have overwhelm and it's very hard to access. Well, it's almost like I would say, I wouldn't say impossible. I don't know about that, but it's really hard to access your intuition if, for example, you're in the fight flight, right? Or you're in a
Mhm.
freeze state. You don't have access to that higher being, higher self type of um yourself. So I think it's important to access that because people can feel such crap about themselves, right? Like, why can't I figure this out? What is wrong with me for not understanding? Well, like you said, there's actually these parts that are like driving you. And if we don't identify them, you can sit there in meditation all day long. But if you're not understanding X, Y, and Z, you're, like, in this, like, this loop of, like, hating yourself, feeling a certain way,
Mhm.
not understanding things. "Well, I did all my affirmations, it's not working, and I'm trying to
Right.
manifest and doing the moon cycles," and you're like, "This is not making sense," and that's honestly is what I would used to do, and I wasn't even manifesting the stuff I even wanted.
Right. And, yeah, it's such a great point. And what I would say, kind of my thoughts around that is, well, because manifesting is a massive, topic
Yeah.
in the self-help world. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
for what? Like, why do we want to manifest anything? Like, what would be the point of behind trying to manifest anything? And the point is to feel ourselves in a different state. So if I say I want to run a marathon, why do I want to run a marathon? It's not because I like running, although your logical self will tell you, well, it's because I like running. You'll get a seemingly logical, but in my opinion, very unintelligent answer to that question because it doesn't speak to the meaning and the purpose that motivates literally the entire human species. Okay. So that's an unintelligent, oh, well, I like running and it'll be great. We'll give ourselves all of these ridiculous myopic answers. But the real truth is the only reason why we want to manifest anything is because we want to have a felt experience of ourselves in a different state. Why do we wanna quit drinking? Because we feel like crap when we're hungover, and we know that there's a better version of ourself waiting to be born. We're curious about who could we become if we gave this thing up, right? So the whole point behind manifesting anyway is to just feel yourself in a different it's again back to the feeling. So the trick, and here's the kicker, behind manifesting, which is an intuitive experience by the maps on beautifully, like the more intuitive you are, I don't even actually consider myself to be someone who even thinks about manifesting because when you live an intuitive life, that happens automatically. I don't even think about it. It just happens because I'm always in that space, right? But the trick to manifesting, the mechanism that makes manifesting work is to realize that you already have the thing that you want. That's the magnetic pull. So that's why so few people manifest what they want is they still view themselves from the identity of someone who doesn't have it. But in order to manifest it, you have to see yourself as the person who already has it. And how do we do that? Through feeling ourselves the way we want to feel ourselves now without the thing. So again, we're just chasing a future state, a felt sense of a future state
Mm.
that you can have right now. You can invoke that feeling right now when you learn. You can literally invoke any feeling you want in this now moment. You can invoke it. Like we actually have a lot of when we're honest and we're letting ourselves feel our feelings and we're not blocked, when we're not holding back, you can invoke whatever felt state you want, right? So again, it's just back to the feelings, man. That is what we're chasing anyway by trying to achieve all of this external stuff. So, I'm just proposing let's just go do that directly without all the middlemen,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I'm just thinking too, and and I know this is a little more complicated than just this, but when people want to stop drinking, and I know there's like sometimes two parts of people, like one part that wants to stop, one part that doesn't, but they are like waiting for this like perfect time, and I'm like, yeah,
Mm,
there's like no such thing. You're not going to get confidence like in a week. You're going to get it through like actually doing the thing, and then that puts you, there's different ways to obviously stop drinking, but it puts you in different experiences. Like when you wake up a certain way, you become that person because you're doing the thing, not waiting to this like perfect time. Although I do have to say I did wait after my 39th birthday, after my birthday celebration. So I get like all the different nuances, but my point being is sometimes you just gotta jump off a ledge
sure.
and like, and I even put on my like journal in 2022. I don't do this as much anymore, but I put I want to change my relationship with alcohol in my manifestation. I had a manifestation journal, but I didn't like put by this day. I literally just like I want to do this thing, so I'm going to try this thing. And yeah, I failed sometimes doing it perfectly, but like I think the other thing too is with manifestation, with intuition. It's like we have to do things this perfect way and we have
Yeah.
to do this, that, and the other. And that's not how we actually change and have transformation. It's the sloppy middle where you actually become that version of you that you're like, holy crap.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true because everyone's path the authentic life is terrifying, and the reality is there is no right way. That's the truth, that's the most terrifying part of it all. There's no right answer. There's no right way to do it. There's just the choices that we make and how we approach it, how we feel along the way, the fruits of whatever that gives us. Like, there's 1,000 different ways to approach it, but the way that's gonna work is the one that works for you, the individual you, you know? And I agree with you. I think we can set up conditions that allow for success. As we say here in the South, I'd rather be slapped than shot. I'd like it to be easier. We can set up conditions that allow us to be successful. Sure, absolutely. Like you said, I waited till after my 39th birthday and we can do those things. But I tell you, so much success and happiness is thwarted in search of finding a way that doesn't hurt. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna. I'm sorry, it's gonna. We don't like there is a it's that whole Lawrence of Arabia quote, right? That he have you got if you've seen the movie The Lawrence of Arabia, I love this. He they're in a bar and he's like, "I'm gonna show you guys a magic trick." And they're like, "Ooh." And he takes a lighter and he lights it and he puts his hand over it and he's burning his own hand. And he's just standing there having no reaction, just looking at him. And with his hand, seemingly burning. And he ends the magic trick and the guys go, "Wow, how did you do it? How did you hold this flame so close to your hand and have it not hurt you?" And he goes, "Well, the trick is to not mind that it hurts." That was the magic trick, to not mind that it hurts. So it's all change. The birthing of that change is challenging to the old self, to the version of us that's going away. It is sad. That's why with all great change, there's a mourning. Even the good things, right? When we get married, when we buy our first house, when we become a parent for these are terrifying changes that feel like a death in a lot of ways. So, in again, it goes back to emotions. We have to honor that. Let ourselves feel that grief. Let ourselves feel that transition. So, yeah, I think it's just the intuitive way is to just embrace all of that. Let ourselves feel it, um, and give ourselves permission to make the mistakes we need to make to find our way, right? To find our own unique way into it. And that really is the only way to do it. It really is because you can succeed in life doing the wrong thing. Like,
That's true. There is absolutely true.
yeah, like success is not, we live in such a success obsessed culture here in the States. Like, we act like that's the greatest thing in the world. It's like, well, I know plenty of people that are highly successful that hate their lives, that have sold their birthright for a bowl of porridge kind of thing. I mean, they've given away everything precious in the name of almighty success, right? Um, I don't know. That cannot be. Success cannot be the measurement for success. Success cannot be the measurement for a life well lived. It just doesn't that doesn't work. It can only be what sits on your soul. To me, the measurement of success is what sits well with my soul. And do I allow myself to be in relationship with those things despite what the world tells me? And no matter how I'm judged. No, that is the ticket. That's how you'll know. Like my dad would say, even when I'm wrong, I'm right. Even when I lose, I win. Because I'm doing life my way. I'm letting myself do what I believe to be the best thing for myself, my loved ones, my family, on down the line. So, yeah, it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to step into that, right?
It
Yeah.
does, and I wanna put one little plug in too. I don't think too we have to do everything alone, right? Like, you know this, obviously being in your role, is that we often are like, "I'll just do this thing by myself." And hopefully it works. And, I mean, obviously I've been sober for a while. So like to me, it's like
Yeah.
about working on that. But there's still things I work on, but I don't just like pretend like I'm gonna do this by myself. Some things I do, but some things I'm like, man, I'm gonna like, you know, ask God or whatever you believe in. Like I really want help with this thing. When I stopped drinking, because I decided to, like, change my life and do
Mm,
what truly I was called to do instead of just ignoring it, things came to me, like programs and things that I would never have thought of. So I think it's not necessarily where, like, when you look at your intuition and you look at manifestation, it's not necessarily like you said, it doesn't always make sense,
right.
and most of us, we don't know how this is gonna go. We pretend like we think we're gonna know how it's gonna go, like, this is gonna be terrible, and we often make it more of, like, dramatic than it probably will be because that's just what we do. But I think part of it's also knowing you're not alone, spiritually, also in this
Mm,
lifetime. You have help from other people, from, God or source or the universe, whatever you believe in. So I think that is another component that we sometimes forget, that we stress out and we're like, we're not alone. Like,
that's beautiful.
there's things that we can do to access help now. Like, when I stopped drinking, when I decided really to stop drinking the second time, I ended up finding something that worked for me. It wasn't traditional, but it worked for
Mm,
me, and it came in a time when I really needed it. I 100% think I would have went back to drinking if I did not have support. So I think when you claim what you really want and you become a person that's a little bit different, and you take all these little steps and you listen to those nudges, like, you will have things that happen to you that you're like, I don't even know how that happened. Like, that's cool.
yeah. Yeah, that I loved what you're saying, you're right, we're never alone, and we have mighty forces. I really believe that, whatever people believe a higher power to believe, we have so much more support and power at our back available to us if we would just open up and let it in. And also too, I think there's a lot to be said. I mean, clearly what I do for a living, I'm a coach and um, an intuition coach and a life coach trainer. So I mean, clearly there's that. Obviously, I'm gonna believe in working, hiring somebody to help you. But also, yeah, like you should get help if you need it. I don't know one person who lives a magical life where they're really just giving it their all, man. Like these people are maximizing the truth of who they are, who just does it in a vacuum. It's why not get help? Why not get support? Why not? Why not give yourself that gift? I feel like for this kind of stuff, there's so much shame around it. I shouldn't have this problem with alcohol or to begin with. So I shouldn't have somebody, I can't hire a coach to help me with that. I shouldn't even have this problem to begin with. It's just fascinating to me because of how we beat ourselves up with this stuff, but we would never do that in other areas of our life where we fall ill. Like if you got diabetes, would you
Mm.
like, hate yourself because you shouldn't have gotten diabetes and maybe there was something you could have done to stop it because it was type 2 and maybe your diet and your no, you would just be like, "I have diabetes, I need to get insulin. I'm gonna go to the doctor and get some insulin." But when it comes to this kind of stuff, there's just all of this shame, and in my mind, I'm like, "Heck no, man, I'm gonna go find somebody to help me with this because I need the support." I Although, yeah, I've got my intuitive awareness, I'm gonna always listen to that. It doesn't mean that you don't receive support from the outside, and I think that's especially true when it comes to like alcohol because it's so oh my god, that one is so hard. It is so approved of. I mean, I've even known people that are like, "I don't trust people that don't drink." I'm like, "What?"
You're like, "Where did you learn that
There's
from?"
just yeah, there's a lot of judgment around it. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, whatever it is we're struggling with, I think the deeper interpersonal, the more emotion-based stuff, there's a lot of shame and judgment, self-shame and self-judgment around it. We feel like we shouldn't have this problem to begin with, when really you're just a human being who's feeling, living their lives. Um, yeah, so I think tapping into our intuition and then getting and that's our internal support and support on the outside world too, if that's what we need, is something that we owe ourselves. I actually think I have a moral obligation to take care of myself like I'm someone I'm responsible for helping. And the minute that you start to love yourself, how you would absolutely demand that your child be treated or that your best friend be treated, that's when everything changes. Um, Yeah, no, I have a moral responsibility to love myself and take care of myself like I am someone that I am responsible. Like I'm going to answer to God if I don't take good care of myself kind of thing. Because the truth is we are our own worst abusers in many, many ways. And a lot of the abuse we put up with from other people comes from an inability to value ourselves enough to say heck no to that, right? So that really is the I think the one of the beautiful things that an intuitive life gives you is enough inner contact with yourself to be able to start putting in those boundaries, making those different choices, and really caring about yourself um, in the way that you should. So,
Yeah, it was
yeah.
so beautifully said too, is that you're your best investment because if you're not, when you've heard this, you're not pouring into yourself, you can't pour into others, but it's true. And at the end of the day, um, we are here to have like a good experience. And if I can't do something, yeah, I want to invest in myself because I want to do it quicker, faster than I will do it myself. So
Mhm.
yeah, I just love this. I love this conversation. It was so good.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna put all of Heather's links below. She mentioned her website. Are you also on the same Instagram? Just
Yeah.
anything else you wanna share before we end?
Yeah, just, you can find me over on Instagram at, Heather Alice Shea. It's spelled Shea like the butter, so it's SHEA. And you can find my website too, just, heatheralishea.com. That's really mainly where you can find me, so yeah.
Yeah, and we'll put her links to the intuition school and all the things down below. So if
Mhm.
you wanted to check her out, you can go see what's going on. And I mean, I can attest, she's fantastic. So
Oh, thank you, Chrissy. I appreciate you having me on, this
yeah,
was fun.
yeah, no, this is awesome. I'm like, okay, I could just talk about this stuff for like ever. So I'm
Mhm.
like, it's such a good conversation. Thank you again for being on.
Thank you.